How do you use AI to find more deal flow, identify business owners that want to sell their company, and ultimately make more money, close more deals, and so on and so forth? Let's talk about that. I will break down some of the things that have been working for us as a company and for the clients that we are working with so that you have an initial understanding of what AI is good at and what it's not good at. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Marco Palmero. My company Ulysses helps private equity groups, search funds, investment bankers in finding more deal flow so they can spend more time on closing transactions and basically allocate their time more productively. So we take care of the entire origination process for them. We either install them into their own business or we run it externally on their behalf, and then we generate more deals so they can make more money. So what is AI doing in our system as of today? Well, there are a couple things that I think AI is very good at, other things that instead is not very good at. So let's talk about that and let's break down pros and cons going in order, starting from the very beginning of the process down to the negotiations and closing of the deal. So the first part is data. So when we go ahead and start originating transactions for any client that we support, of course, we want to map out the market that they want to address in a very I would say in a very detailed manner, because data will play a huge role in the results that you get at the end of the process. Of course, if you're just targeting the wrong business owners, it doesn't matter how good your system is, you're just going to get the wrong results. So AI in that case is very good at data analytics and data collection because it can enhance a lot of the tools and systems that you use, or that in our case we use, to find information online. Now, a few things you need to be aware of are how you use AI to collect data, because AI is very good at enriching information, but it's still not very good at spotting signal. And despite what a lot of people might be telling you online, especially the guys that try to sell you databases, the signals that you see on these platforms are not generally trustworthy enough for you to make an assessment, for you to make a call on whether or not the company is actually looking for some type of acquisition. Now, the reason why a lot of these databases are positioning these signals as a driver for acquisition is because these signals work particularly well in a marketing environment or for people that are trying to sell product or services to leads. Now, in these particular arenas, these signals are very effective because, of course, through deep AI research, you can spot trends in the company like new hires, capital raises, and all these sorts of things. But it is much harder to spot signals that are conducive to an exit. And even though some of these databases do provide that type of information, our experience has been that it tends to be very inaccurate and it's not a driver, it's not a determinator whatsoever of whether or not that business is going to be more or less interested in selling. The issue with that is that in most cases, it kind of like creates a false perception for you as a buyer or as an advisor looking for deal flow. And it makes you overlook other opportunities that might be just as good, but they don't have that signal, so to speak. And so I think the important distinction that we need to make when it comes to data collection and using AI for data collection is that it is very good at enhancing data, maybe through waterfall methodologies, through pulling multiple sites at once, but is not super accurate at spotting signals that are signals of exit. And that is just because there's no data point that AI can collect online to detect whether or not a person might be interested in a sale. I mean, literally, I can give you an example. A guy might have a terrible event happening to him or his family, last week. He's going to be super motivated in selling because of that, but AI is not going to spot that as a signal. So you're not going to see that company marked as a good one, so to speak, while instead another business that maybe, I don't know, hired a CFO or an internal financial team might be marked as a company that is looking for an exit because they're trying to get their finances in order. But that is, it is only partially true. It's not really a signal that says, okay, these guys want to sell their company. So that's the first point that we want to be aware of. AI can help data enrichment, data enhancement, but not really in spotting signals when it comes to data collection. Now, second part of the process, once we have data, is how do we reach out to these people in a meaningful way? Messaging and all these sorts of things. So AI, from that perspective, it's very, very good at handling back and forth interactions when you go ahead and reach out to business owners directly, if you are able to map out agents in the proper way. So we have in our business multiple agents that are mapped out to the client specific criteria, and they're very detailed. I mean, they're literally 10, 15 pages long in terms of inputs, and they really go granular on what is it that the AI needs to do, what is the language that it needs to use, and how it needs to qualify the person through back and forth interaction, through objection handling, and so on and so forth. In that particular arena, AI is very good, provided you know what you're doing, because it can facilitate the exchange of information between you and a potential prospect and shorten the time frame that is needed for you to get back to a person, which is key when you're reaching out to business owners that, one, are very busy, two, they don't have time to waste, and three, they have a short attention span. So with that system, we can go back and forth with people on LinkedIn, email, phone, whatever, and ultimately convert them into a call or into a meeting much faster if they're interested in selling their company. Some things to be aware of course, if you don't know what you're doing, AI is just going to make a big fucking mess. Plus, if you try to use it to personalize messages or personalize interactions at scale, you might be very disappointed, because independently of how good you are on mapping, I don't care what the gurus tell you online, you're not going to get that type of human flavor as of yet. Now, AI might get there in 3 months' time. Maybe you're watching this video at the end of 2026 and you say, Marco, this is total crap. They already fixed that. That would be excellent. But what I'm trying to get at is AI can work very well in very confined, if you put very good boundaries on it. And so as we, for example, map the agents to handle back and forth interaction, we basically map out all the case scenarios based on previous clients' experiences, so that we can prevent them, AI, from operating spontaneously, because that just really kills the interaction, and it makes AI look like a robot. Of course, the same applies to messages that go out from an outreach perspective. You're going to see, and probably you have seen, a lot of people messaging you either via text, via email, via LinkedIn, whatever, with messages that sound very robotic. That is because they are not using AI in the appropriate manner, and they're trying to achieve scale through personalization, but AI is not really supporting them with that particular thing, because it just creates messages that are just too clunky, not realistic, not really something that a person would tell. And again, a lot of people will tell you, well, you need to do things right. If you don't know how to map it, then you're not going to be successful. That's total bullshit. I mean, I'm just going to tell you, it doesn't matter how good you are on mapping it. AI is going to pick specific data points from a website, from whatever, to create that personalized line. And it's going to sound weird no matter how you map it. So the way we found to be working very, very well to originate conversations and generate motivated sellers is the original message has some level of personalization that is decided beforehand, and then we put into the system as test variations. And then after we collect some initial interest from the person, then we can use AI for the back and forth interaction. That becomes very, very productive. Still, the escalation and the confirmation of the appointment needs to be managed by an individual, because sometimes AI tends to be a little bit sketchy and a little bit too pushy in that regard. And so we've noticed that, I mean, in that case, we had mixed results, but I feel it's still appropriate to have somebody in the system that regularly checks what AI is doing when confirming appointments, to make sure no mistakes are made. So I would say beginning of the process, predefined, then AI handles the interaction in between, and then monitoring the booking process to make sure everything proceeds smoothly. Now, after that, of course, we have kind of like um, the nurturing phase, if we want to call it this way, or the multi-channel approach. I think we can talk about both things, then we can go into the deal negotiation part of the video. Now let's talk about the channels first. I think it's better to talk about that since we're moving sequentially. As we have data and messages ready, then it becomes a question of how do we reach our target audience, our target motivated sellers across multiple channels? Because as we originate deals, we understand that we're going to operate on very tiny percentage points in terms of results, because out of an audience of 1,000 people, probably 10 of them might be interested in selling. And out of these 10, maybe 3 might be good deals. So we want to make sure we maximize that result that we get at the bottom of the funnel. And in order to do that, if we have a capped audience, we need to reach out to these people across multiple channels to improve our chances of them getting and giving a response to us. Now, how does AI help us with this? Well, it basically can put all these things together, all these channels together, and create a very smooth system, a very holistic approach towards origination, towards off-market origination, so that you don't necessarily need to patch together multiple channels of outreach, but you can have a system that operates virtually on autopilot. So you can have an initial sequence that goes out via email, then a voicemail drop to follow up, a LinkedIn message that goes out if you want to use LinkedIn, and then maybe a task created to follow up with a phone call at the end of the cycle. This is just an example, of course, but AI can really put these things together and automate a lot of it for you so that you don't have to invest $100,000 on an analyst every single year, but you can just give this to AI, and maybe you still hire the analyst, but you have him take care of more high value tasks like, deal underwriting and analysis, for example. So that's what AI can really do quite well. I guess I don't really have experienced a lot of downsides to that particular process, because if you can map it out properly, then it can really drive results. What I always try to be aware of is the hyper personalization type of argument, because too many try to pitch you this idea of being super personal, but the truth of the matter is it just looks weird. If somebody reaches out to you as a business owner talking about your child softball game or something like that, you're gonna think this guy is a big fucking weirdo. It's like, what are you, a CIA agent or something? How do you know all that crap about me, right? So in some cases we found, and again, in most cases we found that it tends to produce the opposite result that people wanted to expect, and more like regular templates might be more effective from that perspective. And even on a multi-channel approach, that applies too. Now, last thing is systems before we get into deal execution, which is really important because I think it's where AI really shines alongside data collection. So after you found deals, of course, not all of them are going to be qualified. You're going to book some calls with a bunch of them, have some interactions. Now, that's the moment where a lot of people, even the experienced private equity groups, investment bankers, everybody loses transactions, because humans are humans, and we are very bad at keeping track of things. It doesn't matter how organized you are. I mean, I'm a pretty organized person and I still lose track of a bunch of different things. And so with AI, we can solve for that by making sure every single prospect is in the process and is followed up with in an appropriate manner. And this is really key because, again, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, we are working on very tiny percentage results. So it's a shame to then lose some of these opportunities just because we aren't able to keep track of them appropriately. And so I talked about this in many videos. There might be different types of sellers that you book a call with, motivated people, people that are ready in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, you always want to talk with them in a different way. And with AI, we can create systems to talk to them in the appropriate manner and also follow up with them regularly without you necessarily remembering it. And that's really key because, again, then you have a very strong nurturing system in place that acts on your behalf and that enables you to still take care of the most important tasks that you have allocated time for, but at the same time get compounding results out of this nurturing activity. Most people don't get these types of results because they just lose leads. I mean, one example I can give you is a brokerage firms that we work with. We brought them probably 50 potential deals in the first 2 months, so 25 opportunities a month. And after 2 months, they came to us and they said, well, this is not working. We're not listing a single business. And we asked them, well, how many of these people have you followed up with after the first call? And the answer was none. And so as you can imagine, if you just expect people to get back to you naturally, you're going to be disappointed. And you cannot just use the excuse, well, if they don't follow up with me, then they're probably not interested enough in selling their business. What are you, full of crap? Do you think, are you really so entitled to think that everybody should follow up with you just because you reached out one time? That's just delusional, and it's just the loser mentality. So we want to make sure that we follow up with people proactively and we keep them in the loop so that when they're ready, they pull the trigger. It doesn't matter if you want to sign them as sales side clients, if you want to list them as your business as a broker, or if you want to buy them yourself as a private equity group or as a search fund. We want to follow up with them appropriately, and with AI, we can ultimately achieve that result. Now, these are some of the things that you might want to be aware of to use AI when you use AI to source deals. Of course, there are also other applications like in deal analysis, due diligence, and document analysis. What I think we need to be aware of, and also I would say be skeptical about, is this idea that goes around that people say, people always share, which is AI is going to replace deal execution. AI is going to close deals for you. That's not reality. I mean, AI can really replace analysis, crunching numbers, crunching data, but it cannot replace decision making. I mean, we try that. I mean, we have a few tools that we usually provide with people that want to maybe do the soft analysis on deals or maybe create short sims. And it really, AI is really good at digesting that type of information, organizing it and spitting it out in a format that is really easy to understand, but it can ultimately not make decisions, or at least it cannot make productive decisions as of yet. Again, this might change in 6 months, but the point is, I don't see that happening just yet. I see AI, at least from a deal execution standpoint, as a very good analysis tool that can put the right type of data in front of you as a decision maker so that you can ultimately have better information to make the right decision on whether or not you want to close on a deal, you want to proceed on a deal, whether or not you want to change the offer on a deal, and so on and so forth. If you are an advisor, it can help you a lot in streamlining the document collection process, the generation of SIMs, the generation of due diligence material, and all that sort of stuff. Again, I don't think it's going to be a substitute for decisions, which is something that everybody should be aware of. Now, getting back on how AI can help you generate more deal flow, I covered 4 key points: data, and then the messaging, the channels, and the systems. I think those are some macro areas where we are currently using AI with good results. Of course, being aware of all the downsides that I mentioned and the implications of the applications of the AI itself. I think you should be aware of all these things as you try to deploy it, because I've seen so many people, even people that wanted to become potential clients or that ultimately became clients with the company, that were just overusing AI, thinking it could replace everything they were doing. There was this search fund run by engineers, which that alone might be an issue, but I'm not going to get into that. That basically, uh, these guys wanted to fundamentally automate their entire process to invest as little as 1 hour a week evaluating and closing deals. Now, they wondered why that wasn't possible. Well, guess what? Again, AI can help you in streamlining a lot of the things in the deal making process, but it cannot solve the equation for you. And these guys had the issues that, of course, being engineers, they felt that was a technical problem. In reality, it was just a strategic problem. They weren't able to see that there are some things that you still need to take care of. AI can solve a lot of the issues for you, minor issues, but still you need to be the one in control running the system. And that's why they were getting only scattered results, and they were getting an incomplete picture, and they were wondering why all their effort was not producing the outcomes that they were seeking. Again, the missing piece was simply the fact that they didn't realize AI is a tool that in the right hands can enhance your productivity and your results, but alone it cannot close multi-million-dollar deals for you, at least not for now. Maybe in 12 months I will record another video where I'll say, well, we're making million-dollar transactions on autopilot. I mean, hopefully that will be the case, but for now, we're still relying on good human labor to get these deals done, and especially to source these deals in our particular case, because that's what we help clients with. By the way, if you want to help in sourcing deals, you want a system that can streamline your operations, you want to install it in your own company, or you want us to run it for you and then just send you qualified opportunities, check the link below, find out more about how we work. There's going to be probably a waiting list in place, or you're going to need to talk with our team to see what are the slots available to collaborate. Then we can dive deep into your own case, see whether or not it is a fit, and then create a plan that can ultimately drive success, drive results for you. So check the link below, and we will talk in the next one.